أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين أما بعد السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, with the blessings of Allah, we continue our recitation today from Surah Yunus, verses number 79 to 88. Page number 218. Surah Yunus, verses 79 to 88, page number 218. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقال فرعون ائتوني بكل ساحر عليم فلما جاء السحرة قال لهم موسى ألقوا ما أنتم ملقون فلما ألقوا قال موسى ما جئتم به السحر إن الله سيبطله إن الله لا يصلح عمل المفسدين ويحق الله الحق بكلماته ولو كره المجرمون فما آمن لموسى إلا ذرية من قومه على خوف من فرعون وملئهم أن يفتنهم وإن فرعون لعال في الأرض وإنه لمن المسرفين وقال موسى يا قوم إن كنتم آمنتم بالله فعليه توكلوا إن كنتم مسلمين فقالوا على الله توكلنا ربنا لا تجعلنا فتنة للقوم الظالمين ونجنا برحمتك من القوم الكافرين وأوحينا إلى موسى وأخيه أن تبوأ لقومكما بمصر بيوتا واجعلوا بيوتكم قبلة وأقيموا الصلاة وبشر المؤمنين وقال موسى ربنا إنك آتيت فرعون وملأه زينة وأموالا في الحياة الدنيا ربنا ليضلوا عن سبيلك ربنا اطمس على أموالهم واشدد على قلوبهم فلا يؤمنوا حتى يروا العذاب الأليم صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد. So we are talking about the time when Prophet Musa goes to the court of Fir'aun. And we already spoke about the time that he came and he presented his staff and his staff turned into a snake. Okay? When Fir'aun saw some of these things that Musa alayhi salam could do, at that time the first thing that he said was, وَقَالَ فِرْعَوْنُ And Fir'aun said, ائتوني بكل ساحر عليم Bring me every expert sorcerer that is there in the land. Because in his mind, he saw what Prophet Musa was doing as sorcery, or he wanted people to think that it was sorcery. And he said that the only way we can overcome it is if we bring the expert sorcerers over there, which is very interesting for two reasons. The first reason being that Fir'aun was the person who used to say, أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى. I am your Lord, the most highest of lords, right? And yet when he wants to overcome whatever Prophet Musa is doing, he's not able to do it himself. He says, bring me the experts so that they can come and help me. Secondly, also recognize that it has always been the practice of the tyrant rulers to use experts to support them, to support their cause. Fir'aun used the sorcerers. The Umayyads used to use some of the scholars and pay them and get them to say the things that they wanted to say. So even today, when you go on CNN, or you go on Fox News, or you go on BBC, and some expert shows up, and he tells you about Islam and the Muslim community and why there is terrorism around the world, well, and they choose certain experts over other experts, it's the same thing that used to happen in the time of Fir'aun. Then it continues, فَلَمَّا جَاءَ السَّحَرَةُ قَالَ لَهُمْ مُوسَى أَلْقُوا مَا أَنْتُمْ مُلْقُونَ. When the Sahara is the plural of Sahir. When the magicians came, Prophet Musa said to them, cast whatever it is that you have come to cast. So they used to have two things. They either used to have ropes that they used to cast, or they used to have sticks, small ones, that they used to cast. Inside these ropes or these sticks, they used to put mercury. And if any one of you has ever seen mercury when you were in high school, you drop it on the ground, what does it do? It wiggles, right? So whenever they would throw these things to the ground, people would think that it is actually wiggling and has turned into a real snake. So Prophet Musa said, cast whatever it is that you want to cast, right? Now normally, whenever you look at a competition, in every competition that you follow, you will see that when you've got two competitors, each one of them wants to be the first one, correct? Even if you watch a soccer game, what will they do first? The toss of coin. Who gets to start? Who gets to be the first one? Because there is an advantage to it. And yet Musa alayhi salam comes and says, it doesn't matter to me. Whether you want to be first or you want me to be first, it makes no difference. What does that show? It shows you that Prophet Musa is very, very confident, right? And he has that confidence because he knows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is supporting him. So my brothers and sisters, if you believe in your heart that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is supporting you, even you can have the same confidence when you go out there. No matter 50 people in front of you, no matter powerful people in front of you, the way Prophet Musa stood with confidence, even you can stand with confidence like that. Now, one of the things that you notice about Prophet Musa is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he first called him to the mountain and he saw the burning fire over there, one of the things that God asked him to do was what? Throw the staff. And the staff turned into a snake at that time. So when they threw their little staffs, these sorcerers, Prophet Musa was not even the least bit worried. Why? Because he had already seen. It's not just an idea that inshallah. No, he had already seen that his staff can turn into a much bigger snake. It's a very important point. There are moments in life where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps you. When you thought something was impossible and God makes it possible. You will notice that at those moments in your life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always gives you a little bit of a hint to tell you, we did this, by the way. Something happens. An alim says something, you see a dream, you read a verse of the Qur'an, you come to realize, this is the help of God, and God is telling me as well, He has helped me. Right? If you had that moment in life, hold on to it. Because every time you go through difficulty, remember that moment. It will give you a lot of confidence. Now, فَلَمَّا أَلْقَوْا قَالَ مُوسَى مَا جِئْتُمْ بِهِ السِّحْرُ. When they cast whatever they came to cast, Prophet Musa told them, what you have brought is magic. What you have brought is sorcery. And he made a point of it. Why? Because when he brought the snake, or he brought the staff, and he turned it into a snake, the first thing that Fir'aun said to him was what? He said, this is sorcery. So Musa alayhi salam is now telling them, no, what you have brought is sorcery. What I have brought is not sorcery. Then Prophet Musa tells them, مَا جِئْتُمْ بِهِ السِّحْرِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ سَيُبْطِلُهُ. God is going to negate it. Right? Allama Tabatabai makes a very beautiful point. He says, Prophet Musa here understood that God has a natural law. God has a practice in this world. Right? God has a practice that whatever is false, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to negate it. Falsehood can only survive for a short period of time. It can never be stable. Allah will always negate falsehood. Okay? So he says, think about it. What is sorcery? When a magician tries to do magic, what is magic? Magic is to show falsehood as truth, correct? For example, they want to show you that I cut that person's body into half. And that is true. But we know that it is not true. Or for example, they bring a hat and they pull a rabbit out of thin air. What are they trying to show you? I actually pulled a rabbit out of thin air. But that is not true, right? It was a sleight of hand. So they try to show something false as being something true, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a particular practice. Whatever is false, if you try to show it as true, one day God will show it as false. So Prophet Musa is telling them, Inna Allaha sayubtilu. It's such an important message for our lives as well. In our personal lives, yes. In our personal lives, so often we come across a situation where somebody has hurt us and nobody knows about it. And nobody knows our side of the story. And sometimes we get so upset about it. So we go around telling everybody. And in trying to tell everybody what happened, we sometimes do ghibah. We say more than we're supposed to say. We say things which are not accurate, right? And we create so much more harm and damage. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, why do you do that? Yeah, on one hand, you have to defend and protect your image. On one hand, if something wrong is happening, you go and talk to that person who can help you out. Right? But on the other hand, you don't have to go around. Inna Allaha sayubtilu. Whatever is false, Allah will show it as false one day. Right? It should also give you a lot of confidence, when it comes to our community as well. Right now, you see there's so much Islamophobia. People trying to show, for example, Islam in a negative light and other things in a positive light. And you get worried about it. No, be confident. Inna Allaha sayubtilu. God is going to negate everything which is false. Inna Allaha sayubtilu. Inna Allaha la yuslihu amal al-mufsidin. God will never allow the actions of those who are fasid to foster and to grow. وَيُحِقُّ اللَّهُ الْحَقَّ بِكَلِمَاتِهِ. The opposite is also true. God will do ihqaq of the haqq. He will verify the truth. What does it mean to verify the truth? Does the truth need verification? So whenever the prophets of God engaged in a struggle, on one hand, those who are opposing them tried to show falsehood as true. On the other hand, they also try to do what? To show true as false. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the previous verse, He says, whatever is false, we're going to show it as false. And whatever is true, no matter how much somebody tries to show it as false, no matter how much somebody tries to keep it down, somebody tries to extinguish the light of the truth, we're going to eventually show it as the truth. Right? I'll give you an example of this. We know that the teachings of Islam, all the ahkam of Islam, are there for a purpose. We have to have trust in the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes you don't understand it right now, you understand it later. Right? For a long period of time in our community, we kept on saying that when it comes to gender interaction, for example, Islam has certain limitations. It has restrictions. It has laws, and they are there for a wisdom. For example, shaking of hands between opposite genders, people who are not related to each other, not permissible. Don't do that. Then after a while, people started to say, even within the Muslim community, this is so backward. We're now civilized. We're in the 21st century. This has become part of the culture at work. People shake hands with each other. Doesn't mean anything. Does anything wrong happen when they shake hands with each other? No, they shake hands with each other, they talk to each other, they go by themselves privately, they rub shoulders, for example, they do all of these things. Nothing happens. What happens? Right? They're all professionals. Until all of these harassment claims came out. One after another. Everywhere. Not anywhere. Everywhere. From politicians to celebrities to journalists to people who are on air. Everywhere it came out. And then finally they came and said, oh, we need to put boundaries. We need to put restrictions. Right? وَيُحِقُّ اللَّهُ الْحَقَّ بِكَلِمَاتِهِ. God will show the truth as being the truth by the promise that He has made. وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْمُجْرِمُونَ. Even if the criminals don't like that. فَمَا آمَنَ لِمُوسَى إِلَّا ذُرِّيَّةٌ مِّن قَوْمِهِ عَلَى خَوْفٍ مِّن فِرْعَوْنَ. Now, imagine this. Prophet Musa comes. Number one, he comes to Fir'aun, staff turns into a snake, takes his hand out of his pocket or out under his arms, it turns bright white. He goes second round, right? There was a second round. The magicians came. Prophet Musa brought his staff, and it ate up the snakes that they had created. So he won round number 2 as well. Very clear, signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how many people believed in him? Amongst the people of Fir'aun, there was only a couple of people that believed in him. One was the wife of Fir'aun, and the other one was the mu'min of Ali Fir'aun. Mu'min of Ali Fir'aun. 2 people believed in him. Now the question is, how many people from the Bani Israel believed in him? فَمَا آمَنَ مِنْ قَوْمِهِ آمَنَ لِمُوسَى إِلَّا ذُرِّيَّةً مِّنْ قَوْمِهِ. Even from his own community, the Bani Israel, a small group of them believed in him. They were a small dhurriya. What does dhurriya mean? Dhurriya means progeny. So some of the scholars have said dhurriya here means that the people who believed in him were the youth, those who were young, right? Those who are willing to take risks, for example. Some have said, no, it means people who are marginalized, right? They were not the rulers of the Bani Israel. They were the followers, the weak people over there. And they believed in him despite what? عَلَى خَوْفٍ مِّن فِرْعَوْنَ وَمَلَئِهِمْ أَن يَفْتِنَهُمْ. They too were afraid that maybe Fir'aun and his cronies would persecute them as well, right? Now, why does Allah mention this over here? Well, He's mentioning this over here firstly to console the Prophet of Allah and say, Ya Rasulullah, you came to your community, amongst the people of Mecca, because remember, Surah Yunus was revealed in Mecca, and you're preaching to your own people, and maybe people around, for example, the people of Medina at that time are looking at Mecca, and people of Ta'if are looking at Mecca, and people of Yemen are looking at Mecca. Maybe some of them came to the Holy Prophet and said, amongst your own people of Quraysh, of the Bani Hashim, only a few of them have accepted it, and you want everybody else to accept your religion? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala consoles the Holy Prophet that even when Musa came back to the Bani Israel, only a few of them actually accepted him first as a prophet of God. It took time for the rest of them to accept him as a prophet of God. The second thing that you see over there is that they were afraid. They were afraid of what Fir'aun and the other rulers would do to them. Right? Even those who believed were afraid of it. Allama Tabatabai explains here, he says that they were afraid that if they tried to go against Fir'aun and they supported Prophet Musa, Fir'aun would come and take away some of their rights, their freedoms, their liberties. Fir'aun had given them very little rights. This is important. He'd given them a few liberties, right? But then he would threaten them and say, if you ever turn against me, even this little bit that you have, even this little bit we're going to take away. And they used to sit there and say, well, on one hand we could lose everything. On the other hand, we could have this little bit. So sometimes they would not turn against Fir'aun because they wanted that little bit. You understand? Let me give you an example. I'd gone to America a while back, went to a community. Maybe I mentioned this before. We started talking about Imam Khomeini rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh and the contribution of Imam Khomeini, right? Great scholar, the mujahid of the 20th century. Yes. And it's somebody that we should celebrate. It's somebody that we should look up to, right? And you know that those who weren't happy with Imam Khomeini, they're going to do exactly what the Qur'an tells us, right? They're going to try to show him as batil, yes? So we have to overcome that, okay. So as we start talking about Imam Khomeini, somebody there, one of the leaders there, stood up and he got quite upset. He said, what if the FBI found out about this? Tomorrow they could close us down, yeah? Tomorrow they could, for example, take away this status and take away that status, right? I said, Baba, I thought we lived in a country where there was freedom of speech, yeah? But you realize what happened. The FBI had allowed them, for example, the system there had allowed them to have a little bit of their own center, have a little bit of their own statuses, have a little bit of own liberty. And they'd also told them that if you do something that's against what the system likes you to do, even that little bit that you have, we're going to take it away. The same thing that happened at the time of Fir'aun is the same thing that's happening right now over there, right? So they were afraid as well. So Prophet Musa actually had to tell them, وَقَالَ مُوسَى يَا قَوْمِ. Prophet Musa had to turn to his people and say, إِن كُنْتُمْ آمَنْتُمْ بِاللَّهِ فَعَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلُوا. Right? If you truly have faith in God and you claim to be Muslims, because let's remember, the people of that time were the Muslims of that time, right? Then there is a sign that you have Iman. The sign of Iman is what? The sign of Iman is tawakkul. Put a little bit of trust in God. Yeah? You know, for the Muslim community, sometimes when you start on an initiative, right? You know, not every time you're going to have certainty about an initiative. You know that the initiative is something you have to do. You know that, inshallah, there is support for it as well. But I'm not certain whether this initiative is going to reach there or not. فَعَلَى اللَّهِ تَوَكَّلُوا. Have tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? When we talk about the land next door, for example, we know that God wants this, right? We know that there is generally support. Do we have certainty we're going to make that or we're not? فَعَلَى اللَّهِ تَوَكَّلُوا. I mean, what's the point of having Iman if we can't put a little bit of trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? In our businesses, in our employment, in our interactions. Sometimes, you know, you're told to do something haram so that you can get ahead, so that you can make a profit, so that you can get an interview, for example. فَعَلَى اللَّهِ تَوَكَّلُوا. If you're a believer, put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so they did. فَقَالُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ تَوَكَّلْنَا. They said, we rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they made two du'as. Dua number one, رَبَّنَا لَا تَجْعَلْنَا فِتْنَةً لِلْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. Oh Allah, don't make us the object of persecution of those who are tyrants. Oh Allah, protect us from their tyranny and protect us from their persecution because we expect this from them. Number two, وَنَجِّنَا بِرَحْمَتِكَ مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. And also give us salvation out of your mercy from that group which are the kafirin. This has been interpreted in a couple of ways, but we will skip that for now. I want to come to the next verse. It's a very important verse. So, you know, like every prophet, Prophet Musa alayhi salam, his movement and revolution happened in stages. The Prophet of Allah's revolution happened in stages. The 12th Imam's revolution is going to happen in stages. Every community's growth is also going to happen in stages. He came first. He himself was a prophet of God. He had Iman. He was ready to go against Fir'aun. The question was, what about his community? Are they prepared or not? So he had to prepare them. Okay? These are the two stages. This is a new stage in their revolution, a new stage in their movement, and look at now how he prepares them. We're going to look at this statement by statement now. It's a beautiful verse. وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَى مُوسَى. So we did wahi and revelation to Musa, وَأَخِيهِ, and to Harun. So you understand that Musa is a prophet, Harun is also a prophet as well. أَن تَبَوَّأَ لِقَوْمِكُمَا بِمِصْرَ بُيُوتًا. So the Bani Israel used to live in Egypt. In the city where they used to live, you would think the Bani Israel would live close to each other, correct? Because you all come from one tribe. You all come from one grandfather. You come from Israel, Prophet Yaqub, right? But guess what? Even in Egypt, the Bani Israel used to live far away from each other. One would live in this part of the city, one would live in that part of the city. They were 12 tribes, and they probably lived in 12 different areas. Yes? The first thing Prophet Musa is told is gather them all in one place. No, their houses should also be in one place, right? When a community wants to grow, their homes have to be close to each other. And their homes have to be close to the masjid, right? Inshallah, one day when we want to have our own project of building whatever, you know, inshallah, if we're going to build an apartment complex or whatever it is, right? And you're looking for a verse, this is the verse to use, yeah? They should be close to each other, number one. And number two, وَجْعَلُوا بُيُوتَكُمْ قِبْلَةً. In fact, so close, your home should be opposite each other. Should be facing each other. Qibla meaning to face each other. The scholars have, one of the explanations they've given to this is, so close that the homes are facing each other, right? Very important. That's one thing. And the second thing you have to do is what? وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ, and establish prayers, right? So we learn from this is that for a community to be able to do the work of God, they first have to develop two things. The first one is a strong relationship with God. Otherwise, we're not going to get very far as a community. And that relationship is God is built where? With the salat. The second thing, they also have to build a strong relationship between each other. Right? Today we have people who come to the center. But we have to ask ourselves, do we truly have a jama'ah? Do we have a congregation? A brotherhood? A bond with each other? Sometimes people may say that 30 years ago when we were at the other center, we had a stronger bond with each other than we have right now. It's not a function of center. It's a function of how we have evolved as a community. Right? What the Ahlul Bayt are looking for is a strong sense of jama'ah, of bonding. Right? You know, today, I know, we come to know, of people in the community who are struggling, people who are suffering. And it turns out that for many of them, if they don't have family over here, nobody asks them. Even though they were regular members of the community, they are regular members of the community. Right? If that is happening in our community, then how can we say that we have a strong sense of community? The Imam expects that we're able to sacrifice for each other. When we can't sacrifice a little bit of time, we can't sacrifice calling somebody at home. You don't see a brother who normally used to come, a sister who normally used to come in the community. Right? One thing we should do is pick up the phone and ask, how are you doing? Go and visit. Can I help you? Right? When people struggle for basic things in the community, then we have to ask, where is our sense of community gone? Second thing that's important as well is that they came from one grandfather. They all knew who was their grandfather. Their grandfather was Prophet Yaqub. They were the children of Yaqub. They knew what their, for example, lineage was to Yaqub. They were cousins to each other. But the moment they looked for divisions among each other, I came from Yusuf, and you came from Binyamin, and you came from Yehuda, and you came from this, and you came from that, Fir'aun took advantage of that. وَجَعَلَهُمْ شِيَعًا, right? He made them into groups. And by making them into groups, he weakened them. Right? If we do the same, they'll take advantage of us as well. I'm Indian. I'm Iranian. I migrated. I was born over here. Right? We make all of these distinctions. Believe me, these distinctions don't help anybody but the enemies of Islam, the enemies of the Muslim community. Right? So if we're looking for divisions, then this is what's going to happen to us. But if we're looking to be united in the banner of Islam, in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then inshallah we can build a strong community. وَبَشِّرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and give glad tidings to the believers. Then the last verse, I quickly just want to look at it. وَقَالَ مُوسَى رَبَّنَا آتَيْتَ فِرْعَوْنَ. So Prophet Musa made a dua then to Allah. He says, Ya Allah, you've given Fir'aun so much. Yes. And all this money and power that he has, he uses it to take people astray and away from your path. Oh Allah, I pray to you that you take, for example, their wealth away, make it difficult for them until they see the punishment of God. So when he made this dua, what is the answer that he got from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That is something that we're going to look at tomorrow, inshaAllah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Muhammad.